It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's the Thursday episode of your source for fantasy hockey news and daily gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Taking a look at the pending implosion in Detroit. What is going on with these Red Wings? Let's take a look.
Your Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The work as a fantasy GM doesn't stop. That's why the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast doesn't sleep. Welcome inside the lab for the Thursday episode, everybody. And shout out to the everydayers for making us your first listen every single day. Much love for supporting the show. We're here Monday through Friday. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and drop us a 5-star review wherever you're taking this in. My goodness me, Steele. I'm taking in across the NHL. You're talking about you're buzzing today with all the busyness. Same in the NHL, my friend. We got Jake Guentzel debuting in the Carolina Hurricanes lineup. Let's take a look at his deployment, what we think this is going to mean for Carolina in terms of down the stretch for already a good team, Connor Bedard. 5-point night. Could he perhaps be better than Connor McDavid? A little bit of a stretch, but you and I will talk about it. Obviously, the Rempe. We're going to talk a little bit about the Rangers, the dust up, the elbow, the dusty chicken wing. We'll talk about it all, including the Red Wings. Speaking of wings, another loss, though, Steele. Fights in practice, disappointing performances from a team that we thought was right there on the cusp. 6 straight losses. Over to you, because I know you've done some interesting research into this one. But the fact remains, looking at the last 6 games for the Red Wings, Sabres, Coyotes, Panthers, Islanders, Golden Knights, none of these losses were close.
No, they weren't close at all. And I guess we'll start there with the skirmish in practice between Lucas Raymond and Ben Sherratt. I mean, that just shows how bad it is in Detroit right now with the teammates going at each other. They are losing hope really quickly. The Steve Yzerman plan seems to be in shambles right now. And it just shows how quickly things can change in the NHL. 1 minute you're chilling, you're in a wild card spot. You've got a pretty good distance from teams chasing you. Yeah. And the next minute you're frantic. You're trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. You're losing by, incredible margins right now. And, again, this is the funniest thing to me, and it's been all over the news, sports news and everything.
Yeah, I like
Detroit. The Detroit had the 6-game winning streak. I believe it was the day after their last win against the Washington Capitals, or maybe 2 days after, before the game against the Islanders. They announced a new sponsorship partner with Priority Waste, a legit garbage disposal company in Detroit. And it seems to be a very fitting sponsorship right now for what's transpired over the last week and a half for the Detroit Red Wings. And just, again, looking at the 6-game losing streak right now, I mean, losses to the Islanders, the Panthers, the Avalanche, even the Golden Knights, it's understandable. Those are playoff caliber teams. Those are teams, again, like if you lose it,
sure.
With all considered to the exponential margin of the game. But I mean, a 4-0 loss to the Arizona Coyotes and a 7-3 slaughtering from the Buffalo Sabres is absolutely inexcusable. They've let their goaltenders, especially Alex Lyon, down in those last 6 games. And again, like they are really imploding right now, and it shows from that skirmish in practice between Raymond and Sherratt.
What's interesting is they do have the 10th best power play in the league, and for most of the year, especially over that stretch, lots of peripheral fantasy value to be had. Even Alex Lyon had a really good season, a nice week-to-week flyer ad for a lot of GMs out there. But when you come back from a 4-0 loss to the Arizona Coyotes at any portion of the year, let alone right now when Arizona, I think, has 1 win in 2 months, and you get shut out, I just got to say, if you don't come back and at least show something, then they get dusted by the Knights, they get dusted by the Sabres again. This is just telling me, Steele, and then when you look into the lineup, into the standings, they're 2 points back of the wild card spot. The season is not over yet in terms of the standings. But in terms of what you're seeing on the ice, their goose is cooked if this is what's even going to be close to what they're putting on in terms of a night-to-night performance with the last, 18 or so games here or whatever they have left. It's not going to be pretty, and that's why you're going to have to be very wary if you're a GM out there with Detroit Red Wings in the lineup, especially guys like this in Raymond who are getting into it with Sherrod, a big boy veteran, in practice. That's just where you have to be very, very wary about where you're deploying the pieces on teams that are struggling.
Yeah, and just looking at their schedule moving forward, I mean, they have a pretty decent schedule over the next week and a half. They another game against the Arizona Coyotes, so maybe they can redeem themselves there. Another game against the Buffalo Sabres. So just their next 5 games, Coyotes, Sabres, Penguins, Blue Jackets, and Islanders. So those are 4 games against those teams that are definitely winnable, bottom tier teams. The Penguins continue to struggle. Buffalo's actually making a little bit of a late comeback up the standings right now. So that could
UPL, baby.
With UPL in the crease. I mean, Columbus is still at the bottom of the league. So, I mean, these are some winnable games. They got to turn this around quick because the Islanders right now, they're absolutely buzzing. I know they lost their last game, but they're 7-3-0 in their last 10.
You're loving that term today. Everybody's buzzing.
Everybody's buzzing right now. We're all buzzing here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. But yeah, this is an important time for the Detroit Red Wings. They need to right the ship. They need to win some games, and they can't lose any more right now because they don't have any games in hand.
No games in hand, but a little bit of time left on the clock. We got a lot of time left on today's episode. We're going to talk about Guentzel in 1 minuto. We got to talk about Connor Bedard and, of course, what's going on with the Rangers, suspensions, and otherwise. Igor Shesterkin is also cooking. But very quickly, Steele, and we can keep this one quick, believe it or not. We always try and serve up these 30-minute episodes for y'all so you get your fantasy hits, your news, and, of course, wrapping every episode with big-time bets and our locks of the night in 30 minutes. However, Jake Guentzel, I think, and I'm going to throw this take at you, let me know if it sticks. Throwing him out there in the first game with Evgeny Kuznetsov and Martin Necas are 2 players that I'm going to say Jake Guentzel doesn't have a ton of experience playing with that style. He's used to playing with Crosby. He's used to playing with guys like Brian Rust, and these are very different makeups, and that's a line combination, Steele, that given that this is a new team, given that this is his first shift in scenery and he's coming back from an injury, I'm going to be very, very careful about how I deploy Jake Guentzel over the first at least game or 2 until I see where he's at. Because, Steele, I understand keeping Teravainen, Svechnikov, and Aho together. That line has been very, very good the last couple of weeks, even a month and change. But Jake Guentzel with Kuznetsov and Necas is making me very, very nervous in terms of at least getting the fantasy production that we were looking to get out of him. I don't know if it's going to mean good things for the Hurricanes or not because they keep winning, or I think they'll keep winning anyway. However, I just wanted to throw that take out there because I'm a little bit wary about that combination with Kuznetsov and Necas.
Yeah, it's going to take some time to get used to. Again, coming back from injury, playing on a new team.
And it definitely could still work.
It definitely could still work, and I don't know how safe you want to be with his deployment because it's Jake Guentzel. Like if he's healthy, if he's in the lineup, you're putting him out on the starting lineup. You're not keeping him out there. They did deploy him a little bit less than what he's played so far this season. He only played just over 15 minutes of ice time, but this is going to be a learning curve for him. This is going to be a learning curve for the Carolina Hurricanes. Maybe Jake Guentzel gets a run out on the top line with Sebastian Aho and Teravainen instead of Svechnikov. They're going to shuffle these lines around, I think, a little bit. But it's also a tough matchup to come back in your first game after injury with the new team against the New York Rangers, a rival in their Metropolitan Division. They're battling for top 2 spots in their division right now. And it was a close game. It was 1-0 shutout win for Igor Shesterkin. We're going to touch on that a little bit later in the episode. But for Jake Guentzel, I mean, from what I saw from watching the highlights, watching a little bit of the game, I liked what I saw. He was physical out there. He had a couple of hits. He got into some gritty situations against the Rangers. He got a shot on net, a block. So I like what I saw from him coming back from injury. And again, like if he's healthy, you're putting him out there and you're starting him.
I'm here for that take. I guess I just need to see a little bit more because also as much as I was liking that Kuznetsov ad.
You want a hat trick in the first game?
I want 3 hat tricks, Steele, because I'm greedy. However, I am realistic at times, and we got to talk about our friends from Ibotta because today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Grocery bills, so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with free Ibotta apps and cash back every time you shop. Spring break right around the corner, which means you're going shopping, but don't shop for your big trip and get nothing back. Make sure you're getting cash back every time you shop with Ibotta. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying the app by using code Locked On NHL when you register for Ibotta. Just go to the App Store and Google Play, download the free Ibotta app, and start using cash back and use code Locked On NHL. Steve, I like saying Ibotta. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code Locked On. That's Ibotta.
Gil Martin here, host of the Locked On NHL podcast. Join me every Monday for the 3 biggest stories from across the NHL, including how newly traded players are fitting in around the league. Check out the Locked On NHL podcast every Monday, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans everywhere, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, be the first to get local insight from MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Really appreciate it. Go subscribe. Go support them. Wonderful things happening over there on Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel. Let's continue on the conversation for today's episode here. Igor Shesterkin, Matt Rempe. We're going to touch on that very, very quickly. Do you want to start off with Connor Bedard versus Connor McDavid, or you want to start with the Rempire?
Let's start. I love the nicknames that this kid is getting, and we'll keep that all for the next conversation because, look, I think there's more to be said there about the Rangers and Shesterkin and him. Yeah. However, the conversation is an interesting one, and I think the point to be had here, you brought up some of those numbers, and you brought up a really interesting point, and when we're comparing the two. Connor Bedard has been seemingly going pointless against really good teams, but then lighting up the bad ones. And I think that's just super indicative of how bad this squad is that he is on in his first year. And I know the Edmonton Oilers in 2015-16, when McDavid entered the league, weren't exactly a juggernaut, but they were in much better standing out west than the Chicago Blackhawks are this year, number one. Number two, when I watch him play, and, look, you and I come on here, we've done countdowns, we've done top 20s, 30s, and sometimes it's hard for us to compare players that we haven't watched a lot. We can read numbers, we can watch highlights, but there's something to be said about the players that we watch every single night. And Connor McDavid is one of those guys that I've been lucky enough to watch in person a number of times. And now I'm watching Connor Bedard, and there are a lot of similarities. Of course, there's differences. They are different style of players in different times. But realistically, Steele, the puck on a string, the skating ability, the innate sense for knowing where to be, the fact that this kid has, I know 24, he doesn't have 24. He just scored his 20th. 20 and 31, 51 points on a team this bad is even more impressive. And I just wanted to say this. He is young and good enough at 18 years old that he could potentially be as good as McDavid. Is it big shoes to fill? Is it a bold statement considering the special things McDavid's going to score 100 assists this year? Only Lemieux, Bobby Orr, and Wayne Gretzky have done that. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say why not? Because what happens when this team, if they get Macklin Celebrini and they get another good piece, why can't he start putting up 100 assist performances when he has the talent that he has? That's all I'm trying to say. The sky is the limit.
Sky is the limit, but we might have to wait another 8 years for him to do such a thing that McDavid is doing right now, because McDavid's 26, 27 at this point in his career. Bedard's 18, so there's a lot more.
27, and look, and the Oilers might be going on a deep cup run this year, and the Chicago Blackhawks are the worst team in the NHL aside from the San Jose Sharks, and the San Jose Sharks barely would beat AHL teams. So I just wanted to bring it up because also 5-point nights by 18-year-olds, you also need to just pay attention and give it a little bit of love.
Yeah, 100%. You got to give credit where credit is due for some massive points the last couple of games. Back-to-back 7 goals for the Chicago Blackhawks and a 7-4 win over Arizona and a 7-2 win over the Anaheim Ducks. Again, that's very indicative of what he can do against, bottom tier teams, against top tier teams in the NHL. But there's a long way to go for the kid. I'm not going to be there just yet until I see until I see him put up some crazy numbers like Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon are doing right now. If we're throwing that in the conversation, we got to throw Nathan McKinnon in there as well, because those are the top two players.
100%. No, 100%. And for context, look, Connor McDavid had his first season in the NHL cut short with that clavicle injury. In 45 games played, he had 16 goals and 32 assists for 48 points. Very similar to what Bedard has done through 52 games, 20 goals and 31 assists. Also spent some time on the shelf. So there is definite comparables there. And that was just the last point I wanted to bring up, because also, Steele, what's going on with the Rempe State Building, the Rangers, Shesterkin right now, this is such a good time of year for all of this good mojo to be flowing for a team that has clearly been the best, or not clearly, but one of the best in the NHL over the last, month? And a big reason for that has been the 8-1-1 record and 948 save percentage that Igor Shesterkin has strung together over his last 10 starts.
He's been absolutely incredible. And I think this was something that, again, it was very hard to watch just a couple of months ago from how bad he was. And thank God Jonathan Quick was able to come in and kind of take over, play some really good hockey in the blue paint for the New York Rangers. So, over to Igor Shesterkin, again, top 3 goaltender in the NHL. Maybe not top 3 fantasy-wise, but top 3 in the NHL right there with Hellebuck and Ilya Sorokin right now for how they're playing this season and how Igor Shesterkin is playing right now. I want to touch more a little bit on the Rempire, the Empire State Building over here going on. Absolutely insane what's been going on in his first 10 games in the NHL. I mean, he's been going after everybody. He's had multiple fights. He's had a black eye for about 3 weeks, it seems like, 2 black eyes almost. But the hit against Jonas Siegenthaler was completely dirty. It was one of the dirtiest hits I've seen all season, if not the dirtiest hit. And
especially less games than Morgan Riley. That's interesting.
Which is very surprising as well. We're not going to get into that conversation again. But
we're not.
When you go back to the game they played against the Devils a few weeks ago.
Yeah, the hit on Bastian.
The hit on Bastian, which I thought was clean. I thought that was a clean hit. He's a tall player. He didn't chicken wing. He didn't stick his arm out. Clean hit. He got bloodied. It happens. But just an absolute dangerous bonehead mood from Matt Rempire. And I understand that's the type of game he plays. I understand everybody wants to fight him now, but you can't go sticking your elbow out like that. And I understand, again, that, again, this is his first year in the NHL, first 10 games in the NHL. There's no prior history. But when you look at the timeline of things and what has transpired since his NHL debut to this point, he's been in almost an altercation every single game, whether it's fighting, whether it's a huge hit. And he's been running around. You can even go back to the Maple Leaf game where he clearly left his feet and jumped into Ilya Lyubushkin's head. You have to take all that into consideration, even though he doesn't have any prior offenses in the NHL. You have to put some, you have to make an example out of someone and then put an example out there. And I think the 4 games was right. I think they nailed. This is the first time in a while I've seen the NHL players safety department really get a punishment or a suspension right.
I could have seen 5 or 6, but I'm agreeing with you in terms of it was at least at the benchmark of being something that was significant to let this kid know that the play is just getting dangerous. And it's awesome for hockey to see. Look, I'm not here for exactly making hockey violent again, because I don't like seeing guys face down in pools of blood with, their chiclets out on the ground. But I do like to see the old-fashioned dust-up steal. I'm not going to lie. I like to see the boys drop the gloves and throw down. It gets me fired up. That's why one of those parts of hockey that I think definitely does deserve to be there. And that's the conversation that Rempe is stirring up. And look, also, he was a nice little addition to your lineup over the last couple of weeks. Goal and an assist, 5-6 hits a night, and 15 penalty minutes the other night. That alone, you probably just won your category for the week with 15 penalty minutes from Rempe in one game. So he's also been a little bit of a fantasy bump over the last couple of weeks. We got to always tie it back into that. Shesterkin, though, 2 shutouts over that 10-game stretch as well. The New York Rangers sitting pretty right now, Steele, with 90 points, 4 points back of the top spot in the Eastern Conference. They're going to be taking that top spot in the Metro. So, and as it stands, they'd be taking the they'd be taking the top wild card team. So right now, if we want to just talk about it, The Tampa Bay Lightning going into New York, I'm going to take the Rangers in 5, given what I've seen from the Tampa Bay Lightning of late. That's just what I'm seeing right now. There's still time. There's still also time for the Tampa Bay Lightning to gel with Duclair and Dumba, which that's looked good early. That's just how, me and the blue shirts, baby. I'm feeling them. Shesterkin playing that way as well. I'll take him over any goaltender in the Eastern Conference. Let's just leave it at that. Why don't you take us to bets, because your boy's cooking, and I got a few locks for you, even though it's just one, but I got a few really good picks for tonight.
Can't wait for that. Playoff Vasilevsky might say no to the
that would be a
Rangers.
Good series, though.
That would be an absolute fantastic series against the Rangers and Lightning, but they got to make the playoffs first. They still got a couple of teams facing them. Let's get over to big time bets. But first, this episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from the other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now some legal info for all of you. Claim as of a Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer.
Gil Martin here, host of the Locked On NHL podcast. Join me every Monday for the 3 biggest stories from across the NHL, including how newly traded players are fitting in around the league. Check out the Locked On NHL podcast every Monday, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Flip, a lot of games Thursday night, big time bets, where the money is made. Rattle off your first 2 picks.
Giddy up. Favorite one of the night, aside from the lock of the night, in terms of an over-under, is Florida into Carolina. The Florida Panthers right now obviously playing really, really good hockey. 8-1 in their last 9 games. They're 5-1 in their last 6 against Carolina, and 15-1 in their last 16 away from home. So just a little bit of a tidbit of information for you there in terms of where the Florida Panthers are at. So I would lean to the Panthers because of those numbers. However, the total has gone under the number in 7 of the last 8 games head-to-head and 5 straight head-to-head between these two. Really liking the under between Florida and Carolina, 2 of the stingiest defensive teams in the NHL. Carolina allows the least shots against per game, under 30 shots per game, well under 30 per game in today's NHL is seriously impressive. And my second one, the Toronto Maple Leafs have owned the Philadelphia Flyers. Ilya Samsonov is playing good hockey, and I got to be buying into what I'm seeing from the Toronto Maple Leafs, even though credit is due to the Philadelphia Flyers this season for definitely turning around and playing much better. I'm going to say, though, they've been overachieving. And I'll leave it at this. For whatever reason, the Flyers can't get wins against the Eastern Conference. They have only 4 victories in their last 18 games against Eastern Conference opponents, the Toronto Maple Leafs being one of them. Toronto has an 8-1-1 record against the Flyers. Give me Toronto on the money line. They've also been a very good road team this year still. Feeling confident in my first 2 plays.
I like both of those picks very much. So they're definitely going into the parlay with mine as well. Don't worry if you're watching on YouTube. You're not tripping out there. I had to switch headphones because mine just completely died out there.
Steele, those are like some weather. Like, hey, how's the forecast? What is the forecast on the ground in Kandahar? It looks like you're like giving me a radio update.
It's 15 degrees out here in Toronto.
Exactly.
It's beautiful out. No clouds in the sky.
Yeah.
No wind out there. It's a beautiful day, but let's get back to big time bets. I've got some picks. I like all 2 of those. I like your 2 picks so far. First pick of the night for me, Islanders, Sabres under 6.5 at -132. UPL has been playing absolutely spectacular. Sorokin's been pretty good for the Islanders as they are turning things around as well. The last 5 games between these two teams have gone under the number, so I'm taking under 6.5 at -132. Second pick, Blue Jackets money line at +114 against the Ottawa Senators. They're at home. These are two bottom feeding teams right here, but I'm going to go with the plus money just to juice up this parlay a little bit. Blue Jackets can definitely win this game. I know the last 10 games between these two teams have gone in favor of Ottawa, but I'm feeling the Blue Jackets at home on the money line +114.
Spicy. Shout out to Troy again.
Shout out to Troy out there. He's loving the Blue Jackets content. Lock of the night, though. Kirill Kaprizov, anytime goal, 7 goals, 10 points in his last 5 games. The Wild are absolutely buzzing right now. Buzzing as of right now as well. 6-3-1 in their last 10 games, 2-game win streak right now. They're 6 points back of the Vegas Golden Knights of that second wild card spot.
Goodness.
It's going to be a
Imagine Vegas does everything that they've done to only get dusted by the Wild.
That would be absolutely insane to see, but I'm here for it. If it would happen, Flip, what is your lock of the night?
Lock of the night, baby. Got to be looking at probably the team you've heard me bet on the most. Steele, if you were to say a team that I'm taking, it's just it's a team in the West. What's the team that I've been betting on the most lately?
Dallas Stars.
Dallas Stars. Giddy up, my friend. Dallas Stars are hosting a New Jersey Devils team that, look, this has been a disappointing season.
Yes,
this might be, up there with the Ottawa Senators, obviously more disappointing. The New Jersey Devils have got to be one of the biggest disappointments in terms of their performance this year. The expectations were high. Yeah. However, 7-2-1 for the Stars in their last 10 has me feeling comfy, and 4 of those wins have been by 3 or more goals, let alone 2 or more. So hit me with the Dallas Stars on the puck line at home. The New Jersey Devils are 1-5 in their last 6 games overall. They have 1 win in their last 5 road games, and they have only 1 win in their last 8 against the Dallas Stars. Stars, puck line at home. That one feels like a freebie, so I'm hammering the puck line.
3-7-0 for the New Jersey Devils over their last 10 games. They are completely struggling just to pull out even some good hockey efforts right now. So I'm loving the puck line for the Dallas Stars. Hopefully they can get it done against a better team than the San Jose Sharks and Anaheim Ducks, where they've struggled to hit the puck line recently. But those are the big time bets. Those are the lock of the night. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Days, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They're here for you 24/7. Covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows. You can also find it now on Amazon Fire TV. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day out there. Good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
Gil Martin here, host of the Locked On NHL podcast. Join me every Monday for the 3 biggest stories from across the NHL, including how newly traded players are fitting in around the league. Check out the Locked On NHL podcast every Monday, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.